UFC Mexico City. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure to share the video as well. And also note, I will be live for the entire UFC Mexico City fight card Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight companion. Peep the Mexico shirt, and let's get into the fights. Starting it off, we got Muhammad Naimov versus Erik Silva. Muhammad Naimov should definitely win this fight if there's any hope of him lasting in the UFC. Erik Silva got to the organization pretty late. He's 36 years old. He does have a tricky jiu-jitsu game and has a striking background to go alongside of it, but isn't super explosive or powerful, where I feel like Naimov is definitely more explosive and powerful in the striking. I think he's the physically stronger guy. I think if we're looking at wrestling, Naimov is going to be better. I think Muhammad Naimov should work towards getting a knockout win in this fight. Now, there are slight concerns about Naimov. If he is put into a bad spot in the grappling, I feel like he does have a tendency to give his back, looking to get up to the feet. And Erik Silva does have 4 rear naked choke wins. He's got some nasty strangles. So Erik Silva would be a wild card to win by sub. I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen, but it's just something that I picked up on as like a pattern that Naimov has, and then Erik Silva having decent jits. But still, I think Naimov's going to be a lot stronger. For the most part, he should be able to stop the grappling pressure from Silva, force Erik Silva to strike with him, and I think Naimov does damage, and even potentially Naimov landing takedowns on Erik Silva. Last time out, Erik Silva lost to TJ Brown, who's no longer with the UFC, and he got outpaced, outworked, and strangled in that fight. Naimov, coming off of a somewhat controversial win, but still a W nonetheless over Nathaniel Wood. Before that, upper weight class chin Jamie Malarkey. I'm going with the power punching. I'm going with Naimov. I think he can win by KO here. Now, the betting lines for this fight, minus 305 for Naimov with Erik Silva at plus 255. I like the chances for Naimov to win this thing. I think he's going to get a knockout. Under 2.5 is minus 160. I'm thinking there's a finish. I think Naimov's going to put hands on Silva. I think he will KO him. I know Silva hasn't been slept ever in MMA before, but he also hasn't fought, a UFC guy like a Naimov. I'm going Naimov by knockout. I'm going with the younger guy, somebody that's still developing as a Tajik prospect who's pretty explosive, pretty good. Naimov's decent. I think he's going to win. Next fight on the card, we got Victor Altamirano versus Felipe dos Santos. I am picking Felipe dos Santos, but I didn't feel like this fight was as clear black and white as I would have thought initially without looking into dos Santos a bit more, aside from the Manel Kape performance, because in that fight, his striking was definitely on display. He showed a good chin, took some big shots by Kape, but he was taken down. And if you look at Felipe dos Santos throughout his experience in fighting outside of the UFC, he has susceptibility to takedowns. Victor Altamirano does time decent takedowns, but he doesn't do a lot from the top position. He's not a dangerous submission threat, and he's not a godfather of ground and pound. I think that Felipe dos Santos is going to have good striking success here. He's clearly faster in the stand-up. Something that Victor Altamirano does is he dips his head and ducks a bit as he's exchanging, which can lead him into takedowns, but at times he's just doing that. Watch for Felipe dos Santos to threaten with knees and potentially uppercuts. I could see something landing straight up the center as Altamirano dips his head. Now, Altamirano eats a good punch. I think he's definitely pretty game and durable. I think Felipe dos Santos as well is so young right now. I'm going to say decision win as the official pick, but you're not crazy, especially if it's decent plus money for a knockout to touch dos Santos by KO with that possibility of a knee landing up the center. I think dos Santos wins, but I do think he's taken down. I think Altamirano might slow the pace of the fight a bit, but at the end of it, dos Santos will find ways up, threaten from the bottom with at least submissions, maybe even reversals from there, get into striking with a bit of a, better striking from distance style. Even though the reach is identical, dos Santos fights a lot better from the longer distances, and he's clearly faster on the feet. At times, I feel like Altamirano is kind of slow with his hands. He's a little awkward. Altamirano didn't start MMA till 26. Dos Santos is 23, so way younger. And crazy to look at the 10-year age difference and the fact that at the age that Dos Santos is, I don't know what Altamirano was doing, but he wasn't doing MMA at all. So pretty savage growth into a solid 12-3 fighter for starting that late. Still, I think Dos Santos wins. We're going with shoot the box. Shoot the box for the W. Dos Santos is minus 275. Altamirano plus 235 here. And the over is minus 240. I was like hoping for a steal on an over. Maybe they thought that Dos Santos was getting a knockout and we could get it at near even. But nah, it's minus 240. Dos Santos by decision is my official pick. He's a good prospect, guys. I'm telling you, he looks real good. He's 23. He's a baby right now. Shoot that box is going to carry him well and develop him. The next couple years, I think Dos Santos is going to emerge as a ranked fighter. Mexico so far, we're going against 0-1 for Team Mexico. Next fight on the card, we got Luis Rodríguez versus Denis Bondar. I don't think either of these guys are that top caliber, but Luis Rodríguez is 24 and Bondar is 31. I'm going to go with Luis Rodríguez to get the win. I have to go with Lazy Boy. I didn't like the nickname Lazy Boy because I'm like, that definitely came from him slacking in the training room. But I feel like his hands are pretty quick. He's susceptible to takedowns, but he also lands takedowns. He's also hittable, but he lands big power shots because he's willing to put himself in the pocket and throw really hard. Bondar's 0-2 in the UFC. He lost to Carlos Hernandez pretty cleanly last time. I know he got like knocked out due to like a headbutt slam. But even before then, Carlos Hernandez had outstruck him, definitely with a numbers advantage and more damage done. I think that Rodríguez is decent fighting out of southpaw, and he switches up the stances. He's pretty explosive. He was close in his last fight, though. Like, even though it was a clean win, this guy here, Angel Rodríguez, who is the essence of a tough journeyman, 11-11, but still like a game dude. He's like 14-13 now. So the guy's taking fights all the damn time. I think Rodríguez could outpace Bondar, especially we're in Mexico and Rodríguez from there. Something to take into consideration, too, as you're making your picks for this fight or bets for this fight. Something to think about is that altitude. Luis Rodríguez is going to be primed for it. I think that he can beat Denis Bondar. Bondar's decent. He brings up the high guard. He has okay takedowns, too. He's got a solid double leg, but I think Rodríguez can scramble. I see it as a close back and forth. I'll take Rodríguez on a 29-28. Pretty competitive fight. And hopefully the Mexican judges favor their own native son. Got to pop the Zin out before we read the odds off. Minus 105, Luis Rodríguez. Minus 115, Bondar. These odds make a lot of sense because I see it as a coin flip fight. Over 2.5, minus 185. High probability of going over. I like the over a lot here. Rodríguez for the win over Bondar. Close decision. I'll say 2-1. Maybe that third round, you really see Rodríguez take over. First is competitive. Second, you see starting to favor Rodríguez a bit, and then he wins that third. Next fight on the card, we got Claudio Puelles versus Faraz Ziam. This is another one where I was sitting on, and I was like, damn. It's very odd, right? Because it's a true striker versus grappler. Claudio Puelles looked horrible against Dan Hooker, just shooting for Inamari rolls and falling to his back. And after I saw that fight, I said, I don't even want to see Claudio fight again. And then Faraz Ziam looked real good against Jai Herbert last time. Granted, pure striker. So we're going striker versus grappler. The fight that burns in my brain is the fact that Ziam got ran over by McKinney and submitted in the first round. And I know Claudio Puelles doesn't have the same explosiveness or the same wrestling, but if he gets it to the floor, he's live for a sub threat. I'm going to go with Claudio Puelles. I have to pick him. I think the knee bars are dangerous. He's still only 27. And what's interesting is these guys both have worked at the same gym, same coaches. I'm sure they probably sparred each other. I don't know. Maybe some of you guys have heard more, but I would assume they've crossed paths in the training room. And Claudio Puelles is definitely better with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has really nasty leg entanglements. The thing is, Faraz Ziam isn't a bad wrestler, and he is clearly the better kickboxer here. But the worry is when things get weird on the ground, that's where Puelles is going to shine, because he's going to bring that knee bar threat throughout the whole fight. And I think many will look at the Dan Hooker fight and say, okay, Faraz Ziam, kickboxer, long, similar to Dan Hooker, easy win for him. He'll TKO Puelles too. But who's Faraz Ziam TKOing as of recent? He's winning a lot of decisions. You look back, he fought Zellhuber, as I mentioned, right? And this Michael Figlock fight was not really a great fight, but it was a clean win for Ziam. There was one leg entanglement that Ziam actually got out of, but Figlock is not known for wrapping up legs like Puelles is. Then you see submission loss, which is burned inside of my brain here. Win over Vendramini, that was close. And then the Jamie Malarkey win, that was a long time ago. I think Puelles could lock up a submission. I'm going to pick Puelles by sub. I hate his style, and I'm already seeing the possibility of me being pissed off with Puelles falling to his back and Ziam just out kickboxing him. So, me in the future, maybe you're looking back and saying, damn, I should have picked Ziam. But I have to go Puelles. In a fight that I see is kind of like a 50-50, I think the potential for a submission is going to be a threat throughout the whole 3 rounds. Whereas, I don't think it's going to be easy for Ziam to knock out Puelles. So he'd have to win a clean-cut decision. And I think Puelles can pull this off. He's an experienced guy. And even though he looked like shit last time, it was Dan Hooker. Puelles is a plus 175 dog. At open, he was all the way up at plus 190. Ziam, minus 205 to get it done as the favorite. I'm really interested in what that submission prop is going to look like for Puelles, because that's the path to victory. It's him winning by sub. I feel like if it's a fight going long, I'd see Ziam outstriking him and stopping the takedowns and stopping the Inamari rolls. But we're going with Puelles to lock up a leg. Both young guys with potential. Yes, Ziam, a little bit cleaner in the stand-up. But the tricky leg entanglements, I think, could throw Ziam for a loop. And I'm going to pick Puelles to pull it off, which, concerning call after a horrible fight last time. But I'm picking him anyways. We're going with him. Next fight on the card, we're going with Edgar Cháirez over Daniel Lacerda. I'll just throw the pick right away. I've broken this fight down, I feel like 30 times. Not really 30, but I think 3 or 4 times we've talked about this fight because it's been scheduled. It happened once. I don't really understand the point of a rematch. Cháirez had a fully locked-in guillotine in the first one at the end of the round, and it was stopped a little early, but it didn't look like Lacerda was going to get out of it, and then obviously it became a no contest. Now we have a rebooking. I'm picking Cháirez to win by submission again. I'm not going to go against my initial lean. I know Lacerda's dangerous early in fights with his striking, but he seems like a mess mentally. He could easily be on a 5-fight losing streak here if, the ref wouldn't have stopped that submission early. I think Cháirez locks up a submission again. Probably finds a guillotine. I mean, I know you'll say, but Lacerda will be more prepared for it. But his style is he throws caution to the wind early. Maybe he'll be a little more calculated, but he just makes too many damn mistakes. Lacerda looks great in the first 3.5 minutes and then completely falls apart. I'm going to say Cháirez is calculated, ready to go long if need be, but I think he'll find the submission before the final bell. So I'm going to go with Cháirez to win by sub here. And he almost choked out Tatsuro Taira. So I think Cháirez to win by submission makes a ton of sense. Minus 305, the favorite, Cháirez. Plus 245 for Daniel da Silva, Lacerda. And the under 1.5. I'd rather an under 2.5. I do think could definitely go under 1.5 rounds. But it wouldn't blow my mind if Lacerda survived 3-4 minutes into the second and then got submitted. Cháirez for the win. I'm calling sub. I think he won by sub last time, even though it was an early stoppage by the ref and it got, overturned. I'm going with Cháirez by sub here. Let's keep running up. Next fight on the card, we have Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonça. I am picking Jesus Aguilar to win because I think Mateus is going to be out-wrestled and outpaced here. Aguilar's got a pretty strong grappling game. He's a good wrestler. He's real short, stocky, and physically strong. And I think Mendonça is going to be taken down. When I look at the striking, Mendonça's got good punches from distance. He's got nasty kicks too. But Aguilar has, I think, the punching power advantage. He throws some big overhands when he closes the gap. And I think throwing those looping shots is going to lead him into the clinch. And I think he'll find takedowns from there on Mendonça as well. I feel like Aguilar, he might threaten with some submission attempts, but I'm feeling like we're going the full three. I think Mendonça is going to be out-muscled a bit here. I feel like he's going to struggle with Aguilar. And a lot of people will look at that height differential and say, oh, but look at the distance striking from Mendonça, right? Aguilar is used to having to push a heavy pace and close the gap. He hits pretty hard. He flatlines Shannon Ross in one punch. Mendonça was rolling for legs last time against Maynes, and then he ended up getting knocked out with ground and pound. And I think Aguilar will be a hard guy to catch in any type of leg lock. And then if you're looking at the stand-up, Mendonça would need a money punch. I think Aguilar eats a good shot on the chin. I think he's the better wrestler. I think he's the tougher guy, more scrappy. And I'm going with Aguilar to win a decision here. As far as the odds, Aguilar's a bit of a dog at plus 120 with Mendonça at minus 140. I'm going with Mexico. I think that he can pull it off. I think the gas tank for Aguilar is going to be better. And when we get late in a fight in Mexico City, the native Mexican fighters, I think, are going to have a clear-cut advantage. And you add on top of that the fact that I already think he's a better wrestler and a stronger guy. I think Jesus Aguilar is winning the decision over Mateus Mendonça. Next fight brings us to our featured prelim of the night. It's Cristian Quiñonez versus Raoni Barcelos. I'm picking Raoni Barcelos. I really don't think Cristian Quiñonez is that dangerous. And, all right, that dangerous. He's going to see this and say, fuck this guy. What are you talking about? I'm dangerous. Let me tell you why. I think Barcelos is better in the wrestling department, and I think he's more technical in the striking. Quiñonez has like a long, distant striking style where he likes to keep his hands far out and like try to jab his opponents off. But I think Barcelos will find kicks from the outside. I do think he'll be able to walk down Quiñonez. And when we're looking at the inside game, I think Barcelos is slamming Quiñonez at times. I think he's controlling from top position. Definitely Barcelos is past his best days. The prime is over. I'm not going to pick a finish, though, for Barcelos. I know Kyoho Kang just finished Quiñonez by submission, but that doesn't equal a win by sub for Barcelos, who's been a decision machine. I'm going with Barcelos to pull it off. Even in his loss to Kyler Phillips, he had a couple moments. And I know when Umar Nurmagomedov flattened him, it's like, okay, Barcelos is done. He still can fight. He's still game. I think he's going to rip at some legs. I think he'll be good on the feet with Quiñonez. I don't think he'll be too worried about the power coming back. I know Quiñonez has knockouts. He's a powerful enough guy. I just don't see him flattening Raoni Barcelos. And I think Barcelos can out-muscle him in the clinch and outwork him in the grappling. I think Barcelos is en route to winning a clean decision in this one. As far as the odds for this one here, Barcelos is minus 163. Quiñonez plus 143. Over 2.5, minus 130. I do think we're going over 2.5. I'm going against Mexico here. I'm going against the Entram gym. I think Barcelos is a guy that's going to be ready for a hard 3 rounds. He's an experienced vet. I'm not just going to, straight up pick Team Mexico over here just to support the locals. I really think Barcelos is just a lot better than him, and it should be a clean W for Barcelos on the scorecards. I'm seeing a 30-27. I think he wins the vast majority of this fight. Next fight brings us to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. So this one right here was really interesting because I was asking myself before, Chris Duncan's got some good overhands and looping shots, and Torres is a little up tall and sits in the pocket a bit too long for my liking at time. Granted, he's got dynamite power. But my worry of Torres would be in the later stages. I read something online that Chris Duncan just arrived to Mexico City a few days back. And obviously, Manuel Torres is a Mexican native. Where Duncan is training out of is like 60 feet above sea level, maybe even less than that, where we're thousands and thousands of feet up in Mexico City. Manuel Torres is a dangerous power puncher. I'm picking him. I'm picking him by knockout. I actually think that Duncan's going to get chinned here. It's a scary fight because I think both guys have legit power. Both guys are competent in the striking. But the advantage that I would give Duncan normally would be in the second and third round. I'm kind of eliminating that advantage here. Even if Duncan survives an early storm by Manuel Torres, as we get later into the fight, I can see some damn heavy breaths by Chris Duncan. I can see him gassing out, and I can see Manuel Torres catching him with a beautiful shot and flattening him. I'm going with Manuel Torres to win by knockout. I'm still feeling like somebody's going to catch that Torres chin the way he sits up in the pocket tall, but I'm not feeling like it's Duncan, especially not in Mexico City. So I'm going with Manuel Torres to get a finish, and what should be a pretty violent fight. I think these guys both bring the heat. Manuel Torres is a slight favorite, minus 119. Duncan, minus 101. Under 1.5 is minus 200. Damn, minus 200 for under 1.5. Could go a little longer. Torres, though, is known for that first-round finish. All UFC and Contender Series wins for him have been first-round finishes. He's also never been knocked out, so I do think Torres takes a pretty clean punch on the dome. Chris Duncan was knocked out by Slava Claus. He's been hurt in fights before, and I think Manuel Torres can put the hammers on him. I'm going Torres by a violent knockout in this fight here. And that motor knockout was sick last time. That elbow was scary. He's a terrifying striker. He's got nasty techniques, man. Torres for the win. Torres for the knockout. Next fight on the card, we got Yasmin Yaraigoy versus Sam Hughes. I think Yasmin Yaraigoy is going to pull this one off. I see her outstriking Sam Hughes, stopping takedowns. She's a lot faster on the feet. She's a lot cleaner with her striking technique. I will say Sam Hughes is pretty damn relentless. She's a girl that doesn't break. She can overcome some bad first rounds like the Jacqueline Amorim fight where I thought she was getting submitted in the first and then she ends up winning a damn decision. Yaraigoy is clean in the stand-up, and I think she's going to have good footwork to avoid any engagements in the grappling by Sam Hughes, who's probably going to have to take this fight to the ground to have success. Yaraigoy is going to look fast on the feet. I think she finds a lot of clean shots. I know last time for Yaraigoy, it all fell. She got knocked out quickly by Denise Gomes, but she's a good fighter. Stella Nunes win by knockout. Beat Lucindo, who's a real good prospect. And you can see the Pierre Rodríguez loss there for Sam Hughes, win over Amorim. Now we're digging back a bit. Estela Nunes decision, Elise Reed win, Pinheiro win. I think Yaraigoy win by decision. She'll outstrike Sam Hughes. Hughes doesn't have the punching power like a Denise Gomes where I'm worried about her clean catching Yaraigoy early in the fight cold. She'd have to bring a really heavy grappling game and be super on point with takedowns. I just don't see her being that on point with takedowns. I think Yaraigoy going to have some defense, and she's going to be clearly more technical in the stand-up and definitely evidently faster, too. So we're going Yaraigoy for the W. Yaraigoy is a minus 475 favorite with Sam Hughes at plus 375. We're looking at money line at the unbettable territory, over 2.5, minus 275. I mean, with women's fights, you got a damn good chance of that coming to fruition here. I think Yaraigoy is going to pull it off in the judges' scorecards, cleanly outstriking Sam Hughes and avoiding the grappling, and which should be a pretty good comeback performance after her first ever loss as a pro. She's still a damn good prospect. Next fight on the card, we got Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. Oh, this one here, fuck. I'm picking Rosas Jr. by decision. I don't like it because Turcios won the Ultimate Fighter. He's scrappy. He's awkward. He scrambles well on the ground, but he does give up top position. And I think Rosas will have a bit of an advantage in grappling from top. Turcios is a guy, though, that he's weird. He's weird in all aspects. He's weird in the striking. He's weird in the grappling. He'll roll around on the ground awkwardly, and he's not a guy that's easy to contain. So I think Rosas is going to have a hard time en route to a decision win. At minus 260, I would not go near this fucking bet. I would not throw anything down on Rosas. How I'm looking at it is Turcios on the opposite front is not an underdog that I really want to back with any confidence. You look, Turcios has this loss here to Ayman Zahabi. He got beat up. And then last time he beat Kevin Natividad on a damn close split decision. Brady Heastand fight was a damn close split that definitely could have went the other way. Rosas, the loss to Cristian Rodríguez, in all actuality, looking back, wasn't bad after a good first round. He then just got beat up by, like, the man strength of Rodríguez and the fact that Rodríguez is pretty solid. I think Rosas Jr. doesn't have to worry about the physicality of Turcios. Turcios is not a really strong fighter. He's got decent little punch flurries. He's got tricky jiu-jitsu, but he's a guy, like I said, that can give up that top position and be willing to accept fighting on bottom and then searching for submissions. And with a guy like Rosas on top, he can garner some serious control time, and I think he can win a decision. We're going to go with Rosas to pull this off. As far as the odds, Rosas is minus 260, Turcios plus 220. I don't like it at all. Over 2.5 is minus 125. I'm pretty sure we're going late. Turcios is not an easy guy to bully and submit, but he is going to be out-positioned by the young 19-year-old. So I'm going with Rosas, I guess, in this fight. I'm picking the damn 19-year-old kid over the 30-year-old Turcios. We're going with Rosas decision. Next fight on the card is our featured bout of the night. It's Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado. This is where the card heats up for me. I really like this fight. I'm picking Daniel Zellhuber. I think that Daniel Zellhuber gets caught in the first round by Prado with some hard shots, but then finds his range and actually starts picking Prado apart in the second and then into the third. And I really think Zellhuber is live to submit Prado. Prado's a guy that is at times going to look to shoot takedowns, but he's definitely not taking Zellhuber down. Zellhuber has some really strong hips, good takedown defense. Last time out, he beat Christos Giagos, and he was rocked in the first round of that fight with Giagos putting some heavies on him. But as soon as he starts finding range, he starts picking his opponent apart. He starts doing damage on the feet, and then he finds a submission. So Huber's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's got legit grappling skills. Prado is not an easy guy to bully. He's jacked. He's really thick. And he talked about going up to welterweight after his last fight. That's why I was confused with this booking when I initially saw it, because I'm like, man, isn't he moving up in weight? I think Zellhuber can out-kickbox Prado. He's going to have to deal with an early storm by Prado, but he's going to pick him apart. He's technically superior. He's got a big reach advantage. Ignore what you see on screen. Topology is not right. 69-inch reach is what Prado has, according to the UFC, and Zellhuber with that 77-inch reach. So he's going to have a great 8-inch range advantage, which is really going to aid him into out-kickboxing Francisco Prado. I think Prado will get desperate, looking to maybe even potentially panic shoot after getting touched up a bit on the feet, and that's where I think Zellhuber is going to find the sub. So I'm going to go with submission win for Daniel Zellhuber. Early run in the UFC, he wasn't getting finishes, but he started that finish trend last time, and I think we can get more of it here. So I'm going with Zellhuber by submission over Francisco Prado. And Prado had a pretty sick W by spinning elbow last time against Ottoman Zaitar. And it was some good ferocious ground and pound, but Zellhuber, that spinning stuff is going to be hard to land on him with that range advantage. Zellhuber is a minus 265 favorite. Prado plus 225 as the underdog. Under 2.5 is minus 140. They're calling a decision. The fucking books are onto this shit. I like Zellhuber's chances. I like his chances by sub a lot here. I see him as just clearly the better guy, and you add in reach advantage, you add in speed advantage, you add in the fact that Prado, though he's powerful, is still a bit raw of a talent and reckless. I think Zellhuber's on his way to getting a finish. Zellhuber for the win, and I'm calling a submission. He's taking out the 21-year-old. Both guys mad young, though. Under 25 for both of them. So good careers in front of both. I like Prado a lot. I actually thought Prado was going to have a chance to beat Jamie Malarkey. Granted, he took that fight on short notice, and then he ended up losing it. But if you look, you followed it up nicely with the Ottoman Zaitar win, and I picked Prado's side there. So it's not like I don't have confidence in Prado's game. I just recognize Zellhuber's talent. Co-main event of the evening. It's Yair Rodríguez versus Brian Ortega 2. I'm picking Yair Rodríguez to win. Last time it was weird because Brian Ortega landed a throw, ended up on top. Yair Rodríguez was rolling for an armbar, and then Brian Ortega fell to his back. His shoulder was ripped out of socket, and he's had surgery since then. It's also the fact that Brian Ortega is not all that active. Let's dig at this, right? 3 years and 4 months ago, that is his only win in the 2020s. It's a win over the Korean Zombie. After that, he lost to Volkanovski. Obviously, Volk just got destroyed by Ilia Topuria, but that's when Volk was primed up and, dominant champ. And then the Yair Rodríguez fight a year and 7 months ago. So Brian Ortega has been plagued with inactivity. Like 5 years ago, he fought Max Holloway. Almost 6 years ago, he beat Frankie Edgar. He's been fighting less than once a year. I got Yair Rodriguez on the other front. Took a little bit of a layoff for that, Jeremy Stevens fight. 2 years off, then he was back. Gave Max Holloway a really difficult fight, even though he lost. The win over Brian Ortega, obviously injury. Beat Josh Emmett's ass in that fight for the interim belt. And then lost to Alexander Volkanovski in a gutsy performance. But again, a primed Volkanovski. Up until last night, Volk was unbeatable. I think Yair Rodriguez can out-kickbox Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega's got a good chin. He takes a lot of damage well. But there's going to be an accumulation of strikes. I think T-City is going to struggle getting a hold of Yair Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez is going to pick him apart, wear him down, beat him up over time. I think Yair Rodriguez could stop Brian Ortega standing up. I think he could rip him with an elbow on the inside and then throw big shots against the cage, and a lot of blood could be leaking out, and the ref jumps in. Ortega's got like a pretty historic chin, but just because you never been chinned doesn't mean you can't be chinned. I'm going to call Yair Rodriguez to get a KO TKO. I'm calling a finish for Yair in this fight. I think he can stop Ortega, and I'll be honest with you, the winner of this fight, specifically if it's Yair Rodriguez, is probably in line to fight against Ilia Topuria for the belt. And Rodriguez, Topuria, Mexico versus Spain, that's a pretty dope fight. Rodriguez for the win is my pick. As far as the odds, Rodriguez is minus 182, the favorite. Brian Ortega, the plus 157 underdog. Remember, guys, this is a 5-round fight, okay? This is not a 3-rounder. It's a special 5-round co-main event. This easily could have been the main event. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 140. You're playing with fire there, but I'm feeling like the stoppage is in the third. I think the stoppage is later, third, fourth, fifth. I think it's more the accumulation of damage and strikes by Yair lead to the finish for him. Could it end up going distance and Yair gets it on the card and Ortega's still got a dynamite chin and he puts up a gutsy effort? Absolutely. Yair Rodriguez, though, is my pick to win it straight. I just see him as more primed, a more sharp blade, the better striker, still going to be tricky in the grappling. Ortega's got nasty jits, but he's not a beast of a wrestler. And I know he got, one throw on Yair last time, but that led to him getting injured. And I don't even know where Brian Ortega's skill set is going to be at after the layoffs and the injuries. He could be the worst version of himself ever, and Yair could essentially be fighting a 70% Brian Ortega. So we might be looking at a destructive win for Yair, and that's what I'm going to predict. Yair Rodriguez for the knockout. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. They run it back. Moreno was initially supposed to fight Amir Albazi. Royval, an absolute savage, steps in on short notice, and he's going to lose. I'm picking Brandon Moreno to beat Brandon Royval again. Royval just had a good fight with Alexandre Pantoja, and it's like literally 2 months ago. So it was like right back in camp for Royval. As soon as he heard the opening, he jumped on it. And he didn't take a ton of damage against Pantoja, but closing that gap in the wrestling is not going to happen in, 70 damn days. I think Brandon Moreno is going to be able to take down Brandon Royval. I think Moreno's jab is going to be effective in this fight. Even though Brandon Moreno's kryptonite has always been Alexandre Pantoja, when you look at Moreno's striking style, I think he is better on the feet than Pantoja. It's just Pantoja is powerful and has an iron chin. Moreno works a better jab. He's got better straights. He has better kicks, too. His stand-up game is better, and I think Brandon Moreno can wear down and beat up Brandon Royval. Now, note something about Royval. He's also training at elevation, which is a very positive thing when you're jumping in on short notice, specifically to fight in Mexico City. Can Brandon Moreno finish? This is a question that I've been asking myself, and I'm having a hard time saying it because my initial instinct is decision win for Moreno. I think he takes 4 or 5 rounds. I could see a 50-45. I could see a 50-44. I could actually see Moreno hurting Royval, dropping him with the straight, looking to follow up and throw ground and pound, and then Royval with quality jiu-jitsu defense, surviving from the bottom, and then the round ends with Brandon Moreno on top of him. I guess I'm going to officially pick this decision, but it's not crazy to look at Moreno's possibility of an accumulation of damage and then him finding a win by knockout here against Brandon Royval. Royval's a chaotic striker too, and that can definitely work in his favor at times, But there could be counters that land by somebody like Moreno. It's like to say Moreno is incapable of a knockout here when the fact is eye injury stoppage of Figgy, knockout of Kai Kara France, and then he submitted Figueiredo in that fight. Granted, maybe Figueiredo wasn't the same form that we're seeing now at bantamweight, but let's not take anything away from Brandon Moreno. He's an absolute savage, and I think Moreno is en route to win this fight against Brandon Royval. I think he'll 2-0 him. Last time they fought, it was a shoulder injury to Royval, which led him to getting stopped. So interesting. The main and co-main event are both rematches of fights that were like somewhat inconclusive because of injuries being the ultimate ender of them. I'm interested to see them ran back. And I think Moreno is getting his rightful win against Brandon Royval this week. I actually feel real confident on Brandon Moreno winning. Minus 250 for Brandon Moreno. Brandon Royval is plus 210 as the dog. That over 3.5 is minus 145. Moreno is a wide favorite, but for good reason. I still think he's primed. I still think there's a chance that he's fighting for the belt again, and he'll take on Pantoja for a fourth damn time. He gets 2 times his pro bouts, but 1 exhibition when you count the Ultimate Fighter. I think Moreno's going to look good against Brandon Royval. Royval's going to have a gutsy effort, but he's going to be outworked, outstruck, outpaced, and beaten by Brandon Moreno. I'll pick officially Moreno by a hard-fought decision, but nonetheless a dominant decision here for him. But the knockout, I want to see what the prop looks like. I don't know. Maybe it's worth sprinkling down at if it's big plus money, because it's not wild at all to see a 3rd or 4th round knockout with Moreno accumulating a lot of damaging strikes off on Brandon Royval. Moreno for the win, and I think that he might be challenging for the belt again in 2024. That is UFC Mexico City, and I want to see what I picked for the Mexican fighters. We got 1 Mexico pick, 2 Mexico, 3 Mexico, 4 Mexico, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 Mexico picks out of 10. So I think the Mexican people are going to be pretty satisfied with the performances of their people. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Thank you guys for all the love and support. 28,000 subscribers smash. So we're on that road to 29,000 and then 30K thereafter. So make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Smash that like button. Let me know in the comments, what are some of your favorite picks on the card? Specifically, give your main event and co-main event pick. I think the masses are probably on the same side as me, going with Team Mexico to take the main and co-main event. Let me know. I appreciate you all. If you got nothing to say, W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Make sure you got the post notifications turned on, and don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all so you don't miss a video. I got daily content and live streams dropping, so keep it locked in right here at MMA Experts. Much love, my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.